got Cody here. Hi, Cody.
What's going on, Dan?
Not much. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Um,
It's awesome that you got, a young group of rock stars ready to go after financial independence here.
they are actually a really amazing group of young people, and it's my pleasure to be involved with them and watch them um, kind of proceed. We were just talking. We start our meeting well, we started 30 minutes ago. We always do a check-in. It takes about a half hour. And so a couple of the people in the group are super close to buying their first property. We talked about that process, and they're going to document it for us. And, we all kind of just learn from each other, which is one of the cool things about being in this group, I think. So we're happy to have you. I sent out, Cody, to all the members a bunch of links to your multiple websites, multiple podcasts appearances, at least the Bigger Pockets ones. We're all fans of Bigger Pockets in this group right here. And you can feel free to tell the story. I know it's not like an amazing story, but a coincidence story about you and Craig Curlop, who we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And so I think, Cody, the way this usually works well with guests is you can take as much time as you want, but 10 or 15 minutes, tell your story. And then we just generally open it up for questions. And what's actually worked pretty well with that is they'll just throw them in the chat if you have the ability to watch that, and you can just.
Yep, I'll pull the chat up right now. Okay.
And so, but yeah, go ahead and just kind of tell your story, as much detail as you want, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good. All right, I'll keep it short-ish because I want people to dive into the questions, and I'm sure you have people from all different backgrounds here, different stages of. I know you had mentioned people are, getting ready to pull the trigger on that first property. My story starts back. I think I was 19 years old, and my mom sent me The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And for those of you who have read that book, it's a revolutionary book. It just changes the way you think about money and work and, everything to do with personal finance that you don't get taught in high school or college or wherever you're supposed to learn this stuff. So in that book, I learned that money and time did not have to be linearly related. You don't have to go work a $12 an hour job and, you work 40 hours a week and you make $600 something. You could actually spend your time building these businesses or, buying real estate, things that you put the effort in early and they kind of pay you in perpetuity. So that was like the really big idea that I latched onto after I read that book. And I was like, all right, I got to go start a side hustle. I got to start a business. I have to put my time into something that's going to pay me dividends in the future. Just not something where I'm trading my dollars for hours. My hours for dollars in perpetuity. Because that's what a lot of people end up doing for their entire life. They're just trading their hours for dollars, and it's just an endless cycle. If you don't, whether it's the stock market or real estate or a business, if you're not building some asset that's going to pay you in the future, you will be working until for the rest of your life, which is kind of a harsh, scary reality. But so that was the big realization I had. I started a disc golf, if you guys know what that is. It's like if you've ever played ball golf, it's basically you're throwing a plastic disc into chains, whereas in ball golf, you're hitting a golf ball into a hole. But I started a disc golf manufacturing company, had some success with that. But I mean, the biggest thing was kind of just like taking that step into the unknown, literally stepping into an abyss. I didn't have any idea what the hell I was doing. But a lot of learning lessons. It was pretty profitable. I still run it to this day. I definitely spend less time on it than I previously did. That kind of catapulted me learning about Tim Ferriss and the money being not linearly related to time into the financial independence rabbit hole. Stumbled across Mr. Money Mustache, JD Roth. Bigger Pockets came a little bit later, and I started to get interested in real estate. But I was just interested in this concept of financial independence. You don't have to work till you're 65 and then retire, with whatever the government gives you. You can actually build up these assets or a nest egg and, live the life that you want, retire way earlier, do things you actually enjoy instead of being like beholden. I like the guy in the corner fist bumping. Love that. So yeah, I was just so motivated. I saw all these people and I started to go to events. Like I went to this event called Camp Fi down in Florida in the beginning of 2018. I saw people that were 30. They're living like an awesome life, retired. I mean, quote unquote retired, basically doing what they want, but they have enough, whether it's passive income or, money in their nest egg to kind of just keep them floating and doing what they want. And I was like, okay, these are real people because there's so much crap on the internet. You never know what you can believe. But when I was like actually shaking hands with these people, I'm like, this is amazing. So got really, really interested in financial independence. At this point, 2018, I had already committed to a corporate banking job. I was working at TD Bank doing commercial real estate lending. I had accepted an internship my junior year, which was a good opportunity. Like, don't get me wrong, but it just wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but I was kind of locked in. So fast forward to I actually graduated in December 2017, June 2018. I'm 24 today, Dan. Turning 25 in 2 months. So in 2018, that's when I started my career. And the first month was all right. I'm like, all right, this is fun. I'm learning stuff. It's like month 3 rolls by. I'm like, this isn't as fun as it was. Month 6, I'm like, I hate this. My boss was a dick. Pardon my French. Everyone was miserable at the company. And it was just not for me. I realized that, I need to, start doing my own stuff. And I was doing the side hustles at the same time. I had the disc golf business. I actually had started a blog and a podcast previously in 2018 that year, but they weren't really making much money. Not enough to sustain a real life. But I got a taste of what side hustle freedom could afford me. So January of 2019 is kind of when my big turning point came. This guy, I don't know how many of you are really deep in the financial independence space. I know Bigger Pockets. You probably know a lot of the names there, but Grant Sabatier, he founded Millennial Money, wrote the book Financial Freedom. You guys should definitely give that a read. I could probably get everyone free copies in here, actually, Dan, from Grant, because me and Grant are homies.
I just right before you popped on, I told the guys that Grant is going to be a guest on this Zoom in late February, I think. So he's coming on in a couple months.
I won't steal his thunder then. He can give away his books. But I have a bunch of copies from him. So basically, I met him at this conference called FinCon, which many of you, if you listen to Bigger Pockets Money, you've probably heard about this conference. It's a conference for personal finance content creators, YouTubers, bloggers, podcasters, anyone who creates content in the space. I saw Grant there and I knew his story. He was a guy who had retired in 5 years, made millions, and in his 30s, he just quit. He had this big company and he just said, screw it, I'm going to do my own thing. So I saw him at FinCon and we were both pretty drunk at the last night at the party. And I went up to him and we ended up talking for 2 hours. So I hit him up the next day, sent him an email. I'm like, hey man, it was awesome meeting you. So cool that we could connect and you're a real person, not just this internet figure. Let me just work with you. I'll do anything. I'll do it for free. I just want to learn. Doesn't answer. A week goes by. I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll just hit him up again. He's probably busy. Doesn't answer. A couple weeks after that, probably 2 weeks after that second email, I hit him up again. So persistence is key. This is the lesson here. He finally answers. He's like, oh, sorry, man. My inbox is so bogged down. I rarely get to answer people, especially people I haven't communicated with before. But he's like, I'm going to be scheduling this book tour. You want to help me out? And I'm like, sure. Let me know what you need me to do. He's like, well, I'm trying to hit these cities. And it was 80 cities. He's like, yeah, just book some events. So I end up sending 700 or 800 emails. I'm emailing 10 or 15 places per city, trying to get as many gigs as I possibly can. I want to impress Grant, show him that I'm the real deal. I can work hard. I can, I'm a grinder. I'm hungry. So this is October. Yeah. So kind of rewind a little bit. I'm still working at TD Bank during this time. This is probably November or December. October is when I first started communicating with him. And he's like, hey, want to come on the book tour with me? And I was like, are you serious? I kind of thought he was joking. And he's like, yeah, just come on the book tour with me. You can speak. You're kind of at the closer to the beginning of your journey. I'm at the end of mine. It'll be awesome kind of, duet of financial independence stuff. So I ended up quitting my job at TD Bank January of 2019, went on this book tour for 3 months. After that, got back. I was hungry. I learned a lot from Grant. He just taught me about big picture thinking, how to, run businesses, kind of live a life you love, design your work around your life instead of your life around your work. So that's mid 2019. I launched a couple of side hustle courses because I had been kind of side hustling and semi-successful with a lot of those during that time. One of them took off, an Etsy printables course. Let's see, 2020 comes around, still doing that, still doing the podcast, the blog, all that stuff. I actually bought 3 properties this year. And I guess that brings us to where we're at. I'm sure we can dig in anywhere, Dan. So feel free to, I know I threw a lot at you there. So hopefully we got some questions and anyone can ask me about anything.
Yeah, I think you definitely dropped enough points of interest that they will come up with some really great questions. But going back to Grant, I did follow Grant on Instagram while he was on that book tour. And so were you driving with him in the van, bug or bus or whatever it was?
Yeah, it was literally So Grant is like the grungiest rich guy you'll ever meet. Like he's a multimillionaire, but he'll like,
He's got a huge
be wearing like a ratty sweatshirt with holes in it. Like a kid made fun of him at this high school we were going to because his like shoes were untied and had a hole in it. And Grant's like, I forget. Grant said some snobby comment to him, but but yeah, like Grant is like the coolest like guy ever. And we were literally in a VW. So if you guys want to look it up, it's called the Volkswagen like pop-up camper. Like there's a bottom bed, that's where Grant would sleep, and the top pops up. So there's like another ceiling, and that's where I would sleep when we weren't in hotels. So we were just kind of roughing it. Like we had a couple nights where we just like parked on the beach. Like yeah, we traveled the entire country, 16,000 miles in that thing together.
How many presentations or whatever you want? How many of those did you guys do?
We had 85 events in total. I probably spoke at 45 of them. Some of them just wanted Grant to speak, but yeah, we kind of co-spoke, which was really good experience for me too, because I got public speaking experience. I mean, I had some previously, but it was just really good to connect and talk to all those people and kind of be, the different voice other than Grant, who had already reached financial independence.
And then one final question from me before we open it up, but and it's not that amazing, but go ahead and tell them how you know Craig.
Oh yeah, so we both grew up in a small town in central Massachusetts, went to the same high school actually. And I remember just like, you kind of see people on LinkedIn doing stuff and you're like, oh, it looks like Craig's doing pretty well. He was working out with some like venture capital firm, like Eagle Investments or something. And then I saw him working at Bigger Pockets and I was like, hold up, Craig's working at Bigger Pockets. So I hit him up on LinkedIn. I'm like, yo, like, are you into financial independence? And he's like, yeah, dude, like I have 5 properties. Like, I think I'm going to take a year off and travel. And I'm like, I'm doing the same exact thing. Let's connect. And we've been really good friends ever since.
Yeah, but you found him on LinkedIn because you guys went to the same high school. Now you're like 3 years younger. Is that right? Or
3 or 4 years. Yeah, I think I'm 3 years younger than Craig. Yeah, that sounds right.
But it was a small enough town that you guys kind of knew each other.
Kind of knew each other, yeah. I mean, we weren't close or anything. He's 3 years older than me in a town of, it's like 12,000. It's not a very big town.
Yeah. So you just kind of knew each other from the town, and you found him on LinkedIn, and then.
Yeah, once I saw that he was working at Bigger Pockets, I'm like, this is right in my arena. Like, I know people from Bigger Pockets. I'm friends with Mindy and Scott. I met them at the Camp Fi I was talking about.
Yep. Cool. So we're going to turn it over to you guys. Start putting some questions in the chat. And
love it. People are already loading it up.
Just start at the top and work his way down, and we'll see how it goes.
Sounds good. I'm an open book. Seriously, ask me anything. I have experience with ads, running businesses, failing businesses, real estate, everything. Okay. What systems do you use to send that many targeted emails? Did you just find a list and mass email a bunch of them, or use some type of software? Jabbar, are you asking about the book tour? Yes. Okay. Sorry. Okay. With the book tour, it was honestly just a grind method. It was like, pick a city, Cincinnati. Okay. Look at all the public high schools in Cincinnati. Look at the colleges in Cincinnati. Look at the bookstores in Cincinnati. Hit them all up individually. Like sometimes I would use, what was it? MailerLite. I think I was using at the time because it was free and I didn't have a lot of money and I was trying to, be as frugal as possible. And so I would use that to sometimes send mass emails, but a lot of times it was just Google and grind. It was a lot. Okay. Next one. What type of properties did you buy and do you house hack? What are your real estate plans for 2021? Awesome question. Okay. So I'm in central Massachusetts and I don't know where you all are from, but central Massachusetts is a pretty hot market. So prices have been spiking like crazy. Like houses that would sell for $300K last year are now $450. So I actually went over the border to Connecticut, ended up buying a 3-family. I bought that one for $235K and it rents for like $3,200 a month, which is awesome. So for those of you who are familiar with the 1% rule, it's really good cash flowing property. Bought another one actually from a distressed seller 0.1 miles down the street from that first property. It was a duplex, bought it for $170K. And each side rents for $1,200. So that's another really nice cash flowing property. And the place I'm in actually right now, so I'm in a detached little cottage. This is a 1-bed, 1-bath my girlfriend and I live in. And next door, there's 750 square feet of commercial property attached to a 4-bedroom house. And the commercial rents for $1,100 a month and the house rents for $2,000 a month. So like the cash flow while we're living here is still really positive as well. So It was a grind. Like I mean, I was on the MLS every single day looking for properties, touring properties is with every free second I could get. It's been a lot of fun. I'm not actually house hacking. I ended up doing this through like commercial loans. So I'm not house hacking and getting like the 3.5% down. The commercial loans just made more sense because my income is kind of irregular. Like if you guys, for those of you who are buying houses, if you're self-employed and you don't have 2 years of like solid income from the exact same source, whether it's an LLC or a business, banks are going to say, hey, like I'm not lending to you. So that was kind of the situation I ran into. But when I went the commercial lending route, they're like, okay, you have a lot of assets. You're making good money this year. We'll lend to you. And my plans for 2021 is kind of just, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm going to get into flipping a bit because I have some friends who have been doing really well with that. Contractor friends. And I've actually been picking up a lot of DIY skills, which is something that I'm really pleasantly surprised about. Like I've learned how to do some plumbing and electrical and all of these skills I never, ever would have tried unless I was motivated by money by, working on these properties I bought. So those are my goals for 2021. I have no idea what's going to happen. But hopefully I can come back, Dan, and kind of share what's going on in 2021. I think that would be fun.
Absolutely. And I'm going to interrupt you. I think,
yeah.
the question about, are you house hacking? It sounds like you're not house hacking, from a financing standpoint.
From a financing, yeah.
But you are in that you have, because it sounds like your 1 bedroom there, the commercial and the 4 bedroom are all one property. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. We bought it all for one property. So yeah, it's not house hacking in the, 3.5% down, live in the same house as other people. But yeah, I guess it's a form of house hacking for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. They're paying your rent.
Yeah. Yeah. Not paying a dime in housing, which is really, really nice. Okay. Ethan said he's working on a startup right now and plans to manufacture and sell batteries. What advice would you give to somebody who's just getting started in manufacturing and design? Reach out to as many manufacturers as you possibly can. So when I started the disc golf company, we reached out to, there's 3 different kind of segments of, with our product anyway, with injection molding and stuff. We had like a prototype company. We had the actual company that was making the steel mold, and then an injection molding company. But whatever pieces, I'm not sure what goes into manufacturing and selling batteries. However many pieces there are, just get bids from different companies. Like don't just go to one, they give you a decent price and say, okay, that sounds fair. Go to as many different companies as there are in the process. Try to get them to outbid each other. Depending on, I have no idea the battery market. You can, if you go to China, it's like of 25% of the price you're going to get in the US, but you do have to worry about like copyright and them stealing stuff because I've heard a lot of horror stories. That's a cool niche though. Definitely. I'd be interested to kind of hear how that story unfolds and evolves, but yeah, that would be my advice. It's honestly, and that's the same with everything. It's just like the more people you reach out to, the more parties you reach out to, like you're just going to get in a better and better position. Nobody gets ahead by sitting there and hoping that something good happens to them. How did you find a mentor? Thanks, Dan. All right. So I've had many mentors, and I always deliberately reach out to people who I'm like, okay, this person is doing really well. They might have a skill gap or something that I don't have that I want to learn from them, or I want to, lean on their expertise or their resources, whatever the thing might be. The first thing I always do is a value proposition, giving them my service or whatever I can offer them for free. If you're going to someone and saying, hey, how can you help me? They're not going to help you. And this is actually a strategy I learned getting internships from a kid who was like a mentor to me in college. I kind of the same thing. I saw that he was grinding. He was a hustler. And I'm like, hey, can you tell me like how you're getting all these internships and, landing all this cool stuff? And he's like, give them the value first and then they'll start listening. So that's my biggest piece of advice to any of you guys who are reaching out to whoever in whatever field you're in. Make them want to communicate with you. Be like, hey, you know what? I'll run your social media page. I'll do this thing for you for free. I'll go and bird dog or scout properties for you and like for free, just because I want to learn from you. I want to understand how you're financing or like whatever the thing might be. Just see how you can kind of fit into that puzzle, make their life easier, because then they're more than willing to have the conversation with you rather than you just asking for help or advice. Okay. And are you FI today? If so, what do your friends and family understand? So I would consider myself FI in the cash flow sense where, this past year has just been absolutely insane in terms of like, I could not touch my businesses. I could touch my businesses for an hour a week and make way more than what I spend, which is really lucky, but it was a lot of grinding. But I'm not FI in the 4% rule sense where you guys have, for those of you who have listened to Financial Independence podcast, you know, you have $1 million saved up using the 4% rule. You can withdraw $40K a year if that's what that's just an easy example. No, my friends have no idea what that means. they have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. And they'll like ask advice. They're like, oh, Cody, which stock should I pick? And I'm like, you're not asking the right questions. Like, yeah, people just don't get it. People in my family don't get it. They said I was an idiot when I quit the banking job. People don't get taught this stuff. And I want to sound like a broken record, but I mean, your number one goal, especially with you guys at this age, is to buy things that are assets, buy things that are going to pay you in the future. Like every little thing, if you start a website and you're just hustling on the side, you have an extra 5 hours a week or whatever, like whatever the thing is, you start a website or a business that pays you $100 a month, which is pennies in the grand scheme of things. But you build up 10 of those, now you're making $1,000 a month. And you know, those things start to build and grow. And if they're semi-passive, like they only need a little bit of maintenance instead of, you know, working a job at fast food or in the mall, like a lot of people do in their early years. I've been there. I've worked in fast food and as a waiter and all that stuff. And that stuff's great. You can use the money you get from those types of jobs to start building these other businesses. But you really need to start focusing or just thinking about what's something that I can build, what's something that I can do that will pay me in the future where I don't have to actually like physically work or, you know, trade my time to get money from this. Okay. How did I determine the price of my disc golf Frisbees? Did you have a preset profit margin you had in mind? Or did you anchor pricing based on other Frisbees? We definitely anchored based on other Frisbees. That's just kind of the nature of the game. If like a disc will run from anywhere from $5 to $25. If we priced a disc at $1, sure, we get a lot of sales. We wouldn't make any money. If we priced them at $50, we wouldn't get any sales because people would say that's a ridiculous price for a disc. So we kind of went higher mid tier with our discs. That seemed to work for us. We did have a profit margin in mind. It actually is pretty high profit margins. It was like 75 or 80% with what we were selling at, and that was wholesale, which was really, really good. But we ended up, that was like our dream model. It ended up being a little bit more expensive in manufacturing and production because we switched around companies. I could go into, you guys can actually listen to my Bigger Pockets business interview if you want to like really get into the numbers and hear all about all that. But it ended up being like 60% profit margin. But that's just what made sense. If we raised our prices, we probably wouldn't have got sales. We could have dropped prices, got more sales, but we end up just kind of being like what I said, I'm trying to think. What's a good analogy here? I don't know, but like a higher mid-tier brand. Okay. What advice do you have for those in college who will be in college soon? Are there any things you did to set yourself up for success? Awesome question, Joe. Yes. And it's kind of the same thing I've been saying this whole time. And it's the people who hustle the hardest, who reach out, who do the most stuff early on are going to get ahead. I literally applied, and this is going to sound crazy, but I'll tell you the process. I applied to over 150 scholarships, like going into college and during college, which sounds insane. Like you guys are like, what the hell, Cody? Like, what's wrong with you? But what I did was I had a template approach. I wrote like 6 essays, and yes, it was a grind, but it was like during the summer, and instead of like, you know, going out and drinking on a Friday night, I would, you know, write an essay. And it only took a couple of weekends, and all of a sudden I have this arsenal of awesome essays. I have like six essays for basically the major, like the, you know, you'll see recurring themes as you're applying to college, or I mean, even while you're in college, you're applying to scholarships. They'll ask like, hey, why do you want to be in the field you're in? Or what's your biggest failure? It's like, tell us about that. 75 or 80% of them, you're going to have those wacko ones that are a little bit different than the essays you've written. But for most part, and this is kind of like with anything, with a cover letter, if you're applying for a job, make templates, make it easy on yourself, like make the templates in advance, and then just tweak and alter whatever you need to do to whether, you know, get that internship position, get that scholarship. So yes, if you're going to be in college soon, or even if you're in college now, it's not too late. I got scholarships my sophomore and junior year that I didn't have at the beginning of my college career, just because I went out and got it. And a lot of people just don't even go for it because they're like, oh, I'm never going to get that scholarship. I literally got a scholarship, like a $1,400 every single year of my college. And that doesn't sound like too much. I mean, maybe it does depending on whether you go to a community college or a private college. But because my grandma was Swedish, it was like write a 500-word essay and talking about like your heritage. And my grandma was from Sweden, or like her ancestors were. And I just got the scholarship. I mean, I have no really ties to Sweden. I don't know Swedish. I don't really know anything about Sweden at all. But just I took the half an hour to write that silly little essay and $1,400 a year. That's huge. That is huge, rather than having that $1,400 in student debt that you're just going to collect interest on for who knows how many years. So that's my biggest thing. If you're in college, if you're going to college, you know, apply to as many scholarships as you possibly can. Find your niche little local ones. Like on my football team, for example, they had the scholarship. It was $1,500 a year, and there was 2 spots. 2 people applied, me and my friend who I told to apply, and we got the $1,500 a year from my town. There's a lot of these little local scholarships if you dig and if you look. So definitely, check those out. I'd say check out the local ones before you hit up the big sites like scholarships.com or Scholarly, ones like that. But you can also get pretty good scholarships there too. Okay, what are your thoughts on, sorry, I missed yours, Ethan. What would you tell your 16-year-old self? Let's see. Don't be afraid of failure. And kind of the same thing I've been saying, start to build those assets, build those things that are going to pay you in the future. But the biggest lesson I've learned is don't be afraid of failure. I'm not going to name drop him, but I have this friend who always asks me, hey, Cody, what's the best side hustle, man? Like, what's the stock I should invest in? Like, all these real estate tips. Never, ever takes action because he's scared of failing. Every single time I'll tell him to do something, and, whatever the next hot thing is that he's asking me about, I tell him exactly my thoughts, never takes action. And those people just, they never get ahead. They're just kind of stagnant because they're scared of failing. And I've failed so many times. Like, when I say my story, it sounds like a rock star story. Like, oh, Cody, you got so lucky. You hit so many home runs. But I've had failures. I tried to start a clothing line that absolutely bombed. I spent a lot of time and money into it. Absolutely bombed. Made $0. Actually lost a chunk of money from that. And, from the scholarships and of the jobs I've got, there was 100 rejections, and it sucks. Like getting that no, you're not qualified, or the no answer. Like it sucks. It really does. But the more comfortable you are with getting those no's, with facing failure, the more successful you're going to be. Because every time you get that one success out of those 100 attempts, you don't make the shots you don't take. That is a butchered. Dan, help me out here. What's the saying? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That's the one I'm looking for. Perfect. But it's so true. It's really so true. So don't be afraid of failure. That's what I tell my 16-year-old self. What are your thoughts on college? What did you go to college for? College was awesome for networking. College was great to learn how to problem solve. But being honest, I probably used 5 to 10% of what I learned in college. But I'm not saying it was a waste of time, a waste of 4 years or anything like that. I made amazing friends, so many partnerships. I learned how to communicate, learned how to reach out. I mean, just, grinding to get scholarships and internships and jobs, like those skills, those hard skills, having those conversations is going to make you better in real estate and starting your own business. Like just having those skills is really good. I went to college for finance and economics. So I do have the, FI background, but you don't learn any of that stuff in college. Most of my friends who go to college for finance end up making good money and spending good money. They don't focus on personal finance at all. They'll come out of school, work for one of the big 4 accounting firms, make 70, 75K straight out of school, and they won't save anything. That's a story I've seen too much with my friends. How much has your college degree helped you in your FI journey? Kind of what I was just saying, networking, understanding how to problem solve, probably the biggest things to help me on my FI journey. But I mean, I cannot underplay the value of networking. Your network is your net worth. If I never met this guy, Grant, I wouldn't be where I was today. And the reason I met him was because I went to this conference that I didn't know anybody at. It's all about taking risks and, not fearing failure. I met a lot of other people at FinCon too. And, those just didn't work out into anything that was beneficial to me or in a huge impactful way, but that one happened too. Which asset class do you prefer, real estate, business, or stocks, and why? Good question, Jabbar. That's really tough. Okay, so I've definitely recently fallen in love with real estate, and for a couple of reasons. One, real estate never goes out of style. So like all the businesses I have now, the podcast, the courses, those are eventually going to go out of style. Like whether the format is different, I don't know, in 10 years, maybe, people are going to be watching these like hologram videos with a headset on. I have no idea. But real estate, people are always going to need a place to live. It's never going to go out of style. And it has really awesome tax advantages. I do love real estate. And it's fun. I like working with my hands. Most of the time I'm behind my computer. So, if I can, get my hands dirty and actually physically be doing something that's rewarding to me, I probably wouldn't want to be a full-time construction worker or contractor, but the time I do get to spend working with my hands is nice. Business, see, this is tough. Business is fun because like you can scale it up. And arguably, you can probably scale businesses up more than real estate, but I'd say real estate is more of a surefire thing. If you know what you're doing and you run the numbers that you're, going to get a steady return. Business is kind of a hit or miss thing. You could start 5 businesses, 4 of them could absolutely fail, and 1 of them could take off. But business is fun. Like, you learn so much in business, and you learn a lot in real estate too. But starting businesses, even if you don't intend for them to replace your career, and I know a lot of you, I don't know, maybe you are. Well, maybe not everyone here is in a full-time career or has even thought about a full-time career yet. But I meet a lot of people who actually enjoyed their career, and that's totally cool. But I tell them, like, what's the harm in, trying to start a business, whether it's a YouTube channel or a service-based business or a blog or a podcast, whatever the thing might be. You're just going to learn really valuable skills, whether it's technical skills or networking or just, expanding the people you know. Stocks is a great kind of passive. I mean, my friend Gwen, quick little aside from Fiery Millennials. Some of you might know her if you're in the financial independence space at all. But she had a kind of nightmarish real estate. She had like drug dealers and, people were shooting up her house. And so she has sworn by stocks, and she wears this shirt that says dividends don't sell drugs. And so that's the nice thing about stocks is, like, it's not that hands-on. If you're just investing in passive index funds, there's nothing to it. Like, you're just kind of throwing your money into the general market. You own a little piece of every stock in the S&P or the Russell, whatever you might be investing in. I do love that about stocks. Like, I always make sure to max out my 401k, Roth IRA, that type of stuff, just so I have this little side egg, like, in case, crap hits the fan. And of course, you're going to have up years and down years. And I'm sure a lot of you, if you are, consuming this content, you might lose money for 5 years straight. But in the long run, if you're 15, 20 years old, you're not going to be touching that money in the next 10, 20 years. Like, that money is just going to grow exponentially by the time you take it out when you're 45, 50, 60, whatever it might be. So that's why I love stocks. And I guess that was a really crappy answer, Jabbar, but I like them all for different reasons. I think you can definitely excel, and I've seen people excel and retire early in all 3 of those asset classes, but they all have their advantages and disadvantages. Okay, Quentin said, how important do you rate frugality when it comes to FI? When you're young, frugality is everything. And a lot of people, that's their biggest beef with FI, or like, they're like, oh, I don't want to pinch pennies. I don't want to eat rice and beans for every meal. And you don't have to do that when you're young. But if you can keep the big 3 down during your teens and 20s, which is housing, transportation, and food, if you can keep those, like, and a lot of you are like, what are you talking about, Cody? Like, I can't even imagine. And I couldn't when I was 18 years old, spending a lot of money. Like, I'd sleep on my friends' couches. I'd eat ramen. I didn't care. Like, I'd basically just do whatever. And I'm sure a lot of you are the same way. Like, you'll crash for wherever. You don't need a nice house. You don't need a nice fancy meal. You don't need to spend $400 a week on groceries. But people do that when they start making real money, which is scary. So in your early years, if you can be as frugal as possible to start driving that money that you're saving into these assets that you just mentioned, who was the one who asked that question, Jabbar, real estate, business, stocks, and you're saving a ton of money when you're 18, 19, 20, like through your 20s, you're just going to have this massive pile of money making money for you. And then, maybe your tastes get more expensive in your late 20s or early 30s. Since you've already set yourself up for success, you can get that more expensive car. You can get that nicer house because you've already built this asset base. But a lot of people get it wrong. They're 22, 23, they get this high paying job. All of a sudden, they're paying $2,000 a month in rent. They're leasing a car. They're doing all these things that's just draining their bank account, and they're not buying these assets that are going to pay them in the future. So frugality is super important in your younger years, less important later on if you do the stuff right from the start. Okay, what are some methods you use to discipline yourself? So, I mean, this is a really open-ended question, but in terms of like business, I swear by time blocking. If I have to get a task done, it's so easy to get sucked into the Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat, whatever, TikTok, I don't know, whatever your social media vice is, it's so easy to get down that rabbit hole, and you look up and you're like, holy crap, it's 9:00. I started looking at my phone at 7:30. Put your phone on do not disturb. If you have a certain task you want to do, even if it's like a homework assignment, whatever the thing might be, put your phone aside and set, okay, like from 2 to 3 today, I'm just going to do this. I'm not even going to look at my phone. I'm not texting my friends. I'm not on Instagram. And you will be so surprised how much you can get done in such a short amount of time when that is the sole focus. So I swear by that in terms of like how to discipline myself. I do like to use like habit stacking too. I mean, and this is just like in every facet of my life, whether it's like working out or working my businesses, just like doing things. So let's say you already have every single day at 3:00, you stretch, or you check something on your computer, and you want to add some new habit or something in your life. For those of you who haven't heard of habit stacking, the easiest way to kind of add that into your routine seamlessly is just to kind of combine it with this other behavior that you're already doing at that same time every single day. So that's been really, really successful with me. And, whether it's my physical health or businesses, habit stacking is a really, really good way that I can keep myself disciplined without just having like an obscene amount of reminders on my phone just dinging me, telling me to do stuff every day. Okay. How important? Okay. Any advice when doing numbers for real estate properties? I mean, if you've read the Bigger Pockets books, definitely start there. There's so many nuances, and the 1% rule is a great proxy for like seeing it for property, but there's always exceptions. But the 1% rule, for those of you who don't know, is like if a property costs $200,000, you should at least be able to get $2,000 a month in rent. I use that as a proxy for all the properties I'm looking at, and that's worked out really, really well. It just kind of gives you a baseline, but there are instances where that's not going to be good, or maybe you could get a little less than 1% rule. It's still an awesome investment. But I think that's definitely good when you're looking at real estate properties. It's really hard for me to kind of give a blanket statement, but just know all your expenses. Like there are property taxes, there is insurance. Make sure, if the house has a 30-year-old furnace, that's going to cost $7,000 to replace. And you're like, holy crap, I didn't know it was going to be that expensive. Or a new roof might cost $10,000. Like just make sure you know how much everything costs. Everyone who's hanging out with me at 8:00 on a Sunday night, clearly, you guys want to get ahead. You want to hit financial independence, buy real estate. So I'm sure you guys are going to do the number crunching. You're going to do the research. So I'm not worried about you at all. Greg, how important are systems in your businesses? Systems are everything in your businesses. If you do not have solid systems set up, you are going to fall behind. You're going to forget to do stuff. Having systems, and it's kind of like the habit stacking thing, but there are like really cool programs out there that can help you be more systematic in your businesses. I love Asana. I've used Trello before. Asana is ASANA, Trello, TRELLO, for those of you who want to write it down and check those out. Systems are really, really important. So in all my businesses, whether it's creating a podcast episode or creating a new piece of content for a course or creating a YouTube video, I always have a systematic process I follow every single time to make sure I don't miss anything. Because if you just kind of are doing things off the top of your head, you're bound to miss something. You're like, oh crap, I forgot to put the tags on the YouTube video. Or, oh man, I forgot to, I don't even know. I can't think of another good example off the top of my head there, but systems are everything, and you are going to miss stuff if you don't have a good system. Any tips for growing a social media account? How do you go about efficiently networking on social media? It really depends on the business and the nature of the business you're in. I mean, I know people who crush it on TikTok. I know people who crush it on Snapchat, surprisingly. People who make $10,000 a month on Snapchat. People who, Instagram, Facebook, whatever your business might be, you have to find out where your target customer is. In terms of growing a social media account, just provide, it's as simple as it sounds, but it's provide value. If you're providing solid advice, people are going to just naturally kind of gravitate toward you. And I mean, I guess some hacks are like, on Instagram, the kind of the follow train, follow a bunch of people and people are bound to follow you back and then unfollow the people that don't follow you. I've done that before and it works. There are like little hacks with every single social media platform. In terms of efficiently networking, this is a really good question because there's so much spam out there. I mean, you guys probably get messages on Facebook, Instagram, wherever. I've found success mostly on LinkedIn with networking. I've also had some success on Instagram, but just like, it's kind of the value thing. Find out if you're reaching out to an influencer in whatever silo, whatever niche you're going after. I don't know if you guys are all interested in building a business or whatever, or even like hitting up people who are real estate people from Bigger Pockets, try to add value to their life. Like say that you created some cool tool in Excel that can help them, I don't know, look at their properties differently, or say, hey, I've been doing a lot of research and Cincinnati seems like it's a really hot market. Have you looked into this? Blah, blah, blah. Just add value and get someone to be engaged, not, hey, Craig, how can you help me become a better investor? And he's going to be like, all right, I'm not answering this person. It's all about, providing value to that person. So that's how I would say go about efficiently networking on social media and networking in person. Any book recommendations for financial freedom, real estate, business, or any book that has changed your life for the better? Good question, Joe. 4-Hour Workweek, if you haven't read it, really changed my life for the better. For basic personal finance, I think that Grant's book, Financial Freedom, is awesome. Scott Trench's book, Set for Life, is really good. If you're interested in house hacking, I know we had a house hacking question. Craig's book is awesome. I like Chad Carson's book on real estate investing. He has a good book on real estate investing. Oh man, there's so many good books out there. Business. I mean, it's like mindset. Like Atlas Shrugged is a good book. Uh, Sapiens isn't business, but it like kind of changed the way I thought of the world and people interacting with each other. I don't know. I'll have to get a master list, Dan, over to you guys. I can't think of these all off the top of my head. Catalina, do you have emergency funds? If so, any advice to building emergency funds or percentage to have? Okay, so Catalina, I don't know how old you are, but I mean, it seems like most people, I think you mentioned, Dan, are 15 to 20 here. You're not going to need a massive emergency fund if you're 18 years old. Like, there's probably just not that many expenses. You probably don't own a home, I'm guessing. And awesome if you do. That's amazing. But maybe a car is probably the biggest thing that could go really, really wrong in your life where you're like, oh my God, I have to spend so much money. Maybe have $1,000 in there, maybe $2,000, maybe $3,000 at your age. I don't think you're going to need a massive emergency fund. Emergency funds are definitely more helpful down the road when you have bigger things that could go wrong, like a boiler, like I mentioned before. And Dan, it might be unpopular advice, and I don't know how much you've gotten to this before, well, you guys are smart. Credit cards can be your friend if you use them wisely. Like, 1, they build your credit. 2, travel hacking is the best thing ever invented. I have gone to Australia round trip for free using points from credit cards because I, get the points, accumulate them, hit the spending, like the sign-on bonus. But I'm paying them off every single month in full. So before Dan crucifies me for saying something wrong here, yeah, credit cards can be a really good friend to you. And once you start making money, you might have a credit card with a $10,000 limit. And the cool thing about that is, like, in an emergency where you have an emergency fund, you have $3,000, but maybe this expense is a little bit over. It's $4,000. In the worst case scenario, you could always float it on the credit card, and then pay it off as soon as you possibly can. You don't need this like massive. I see people with like $50,000, $100,000 emergency funds, and personally speaking, I think that's just kind of throwing away opportunity to make more money, whether it's in stocks or real estate. That's an obscenely huge emergency fund. So yeah, and we can talk about travel hacking, which is one of my favorite things to talk about, whether it's today or another time. But that's a really cool thing to do too. Okay, Ethan, how similar is running a business for you? Being a landlord, do you use a lot of the same systems? Yes. So running a business is definitely a bit different than being a landlord. The biggest thing I've noticed is landlording is a little more hands-on. I guess it depends on your business, but a lot of my businesses I'm building like from behind a computer and kind of building systems that run them for me. So I'm not like, it's not as hands-on where I'm like, shaking hands or going into my tenant's unit, like when I buy the property, which is kind of weird sometimes because when they know you're the owner. But it is pretty similar. Like, you're going to use a lot of the same skills. You're going to, whether it's marketing or whether it's like figuring out, okay, I can charge this and get these concessions, whatever the thing might be. Using systems. So I do use systems in both, but the systems I use in my businesses are definitely different than the systems I use with real estate. But I do have like very strict systems. Like, I've been running all my stuff through what was previously Cozy, which is now apartments.com. Like, I have all my tenants pay online. I have like leases that I have set up, like everything's like really automated, ready to go. I have it all sent out through HelloSign so they can just easily, do an e-sign. I don't have to like go and collect their signatures. So yeah, systems are everything, like I mentioned before, and I sound like a broken record. But not the same systems exactly. Actually, just recently, so like just learning like stuff like email marketing. You'd never think you'd use that in real estate, but something that I've done now. I have some tenants who are on auto pay, and then some tenants who manually pay through the apartments.com online software. But every single month, I just have them on an email list, a free email list that I have through MailerLite. And it just says, hey, first name. And then it says like, just a friendly reminder that you're like, today is the first thing your rent is due. And it just goes out on auto I don't have to do this. It's just on auto every single month on the first, which is really nice. It's just a nice little thing, but it's a skill that I learned from business. I transferred over to real estate, and that's been really easy. Joe, how do you create your courses? Do you use websites like Teachable? So yes, our course is on Teachable. Kajabi is another really popular one for creating courses. Creating courses is a grind, but it can be extremely lucrative. And you can just kind of you can help more people or reach more people with a course. So the cool thing. So think about a course. Like, you me and Julie, my business partner, spent hundreds of hours creating the course. Now we do sell the course, the printables course, for like $200 a pop. If we sold one of those, like say it was a physical course or a physical thing that we spent hundreds of hours creating and we give it away, we're making a nickel an hour on our time. Miserable. But the cool thing about like a course or something like a course or a business is that we can sell 1 or 1,000 of that same exact product. It is zero additional overhead to us because we've already created that like digital product. And I mean, this isn't just courses. This is kind of anything that's a digital product, something that you've created, an asset that you don't have to physically deliver or physically like some kind of physical service. That's the really cool thing about courses. So Joe, if you're thinking about, I don't know if you have a specific skill or expertise, learning how to create a course, even if it's not successful, your first one is a really, really valuable skill. Where do I see myself in 5 years? All right, Dan, you hit me with the tough ones. I don't know. I mean, I'm loving what I'm doing now. Like I'm challenging myself. I'm still learning, having fun. I mean, I'm planning on acquiring a lot more properties once, please, COVID is over. I definitely want to travel more. I love traveling. I lived in Australia for 6 months, and I'd love to go and travel some more, especially because all my businesses are remote. Yeah, I don't know in 5 years. I mean, maybe I'll be in my forever home. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll just keep hopping around. It's kind of fun. I'm not sure. I'll have to come back in 5 years and hopefully you guys are all connected and we can have another Zoom. Alrighty, Jabbar. Yes. Can you talk about travel hacking? What are some tips you have for getting the most out of these credit cards? So it's going to be tough depending on, I don't know if any of you guys have any previous credit. If you have a parent or a brother or sister, someone older than you who you can kind of piggyback on, they can just add you as an authorized user. They don't even have to give you their card if they don't trust you. They should though, because I'm sure all you guys are, you guys are good with your personal finances. That's a great way to kind of just start building some credit because unfortunately you're probably not going to get approved for, the heavy hitter cards where you're going to get a round trip to Europe from the signing bonus, essentially, like the Chase Sapphires and Capital One Ventures. But I mean, even like I know Discover has some student cards, stuff like that. Getting a credit card is an awesome thing if you're financially responsible with it. You'll start building your credit. You will earn some points. So yeah, I don't know if you have credit at all, Jabbar, but I would try to get one of those lower tier cards. Don't be discouraged. I think I got declined from like the first 10 credit cards I applied to because I was like 18 or 19 at the time. Barely had any credit. But as you get older and it becomes a game. It's really, really fun. And in terms of getting the most out of them, it's just the spending bonus is where you get all your points. So like the Chase Sapphire, I just helped my friend do this actually. It's like spend $4,000 in 3 months. And that might sound like an ungodly amount of money to some of you who are like in high school and stuff. But once you have things like, car insurance or whether it's something for your house, like you can spend that money and in not an irresponsible way. So like I remember for my first few cards, I just like paid my car insurance in full for the entire year. And that got me like halfway to the spending bonus. But a lot of times it'll be like spend $4,000 in 3 months and you'll get 60,000 points. Now, once you get those 60,000 points, like that is literally a round trip flight to Europe. Once you transfer that over to like United or American, one of those partners. So many cards have these bonuses and like, that's where you make your money. That's where you get all the points is in that in that window. And the cool thing is like, you don't even have to use the cards after that. I know like a lot of the cards I've got, like whether it's American or United, since the card is not actually issued by the airline, it's issued by a bank. So say Chase Bank sponsors a United card. You get the minimum, you get the spending, the minimum spend, you hit it, you have 60,000 points sitting in your United account. You can literally close that Chase card. You won't lose the points. It's sick. Like I've had like over 30 credit cards at this point and I'm 24. So yeah, it's been really cool. You have a secured card.
I'll jump in real quick,
yeah.
Cody, and I'll kind of give you a break as you've been talking.
Sure. Yeah. Sorry if I'm talking too much here.
No, you're doing a great job. I'll just give you a little break. But on the topic of credit cards, this is my Frontier card that I did exactly what Cody just said. My wife and I think we had to spend $2 or $3 grand and buy one airline ticket in the first 3 months, and then we got 2 or 3 free round trips, and then we just finished this one. It's a Marriott Bonvoy card. And we had to spend $3,000 in the first 3 months. And I just, I pay it off every month. And I think we got 100,000 Marriott points, which is, depending on which Marriott you go to, it's basically 4 or 5 nights for free in a Marriott. So if you combine an airline ticket with a hotel, you got a free vacation for a week somewhere. And but you got to build the credit score up right away. And Cody, you're saying exactly everything perfectly, like I told you ahead of time, which I didn't. About yes, credit cards are good if you use it responsibly. I've told them, get one when you're 18, get one when you're 19, and get your third one when you're about 19 and a half. And your credit score will be in the 700s by the time you're 20. And just before you popped on, Sanibel was telling us about how she just had her parents add her as an authorized user.
Awesome.
So yeah, we're on the same page, Cody. We're teaching the same stuff.
Sweet. All right. And Jabbar said he has a secured card and a 757. In terms of the higher annual fee, a lot of the cards are pretty generous, especially during COVID. But a lot of them will waive the annual fee for the first year. So for example, Jabbar, like with the United and the Americans, like those, I'm pretty sure both of those cards that I'm talking about waive the annual fee for the first year, which is like $95. And that sounds like a lot of money. Like, I mean, I remember that's a crazy amount of money when you're in high school or just starting out college. But it's well worth it. Like if you are spending $95 for Chase Sapphire Reserve and you get 60,000 points and you get a round trip to Europe, I'm pretty sure that's worth $95, but only if you're planning on spending it, and whether it's on travel or, I mean, there's a lot of cards you can even spend on. I just bought, so I'm a snowboarder. I actually just got back today from Stratton Mountain in Vermont. And I bought my Icon Pass. So like there's a lot of flexible travel cards. So like the Capital One Venture, the Barclays Arrival Plus card. You can wipe out purchases like, this is kind of getting really, really advanced. But there's a website called Undercover Tourist. And basically anything you buy through that website is like coded as travel. And they deliberately do this so that you can use travel cards to wipe out those expenses. So people go to Disney and, you know, they get their park tickets reimbursed. Instead of being coded as entertainment, it's coded as travel. Yeah, definitely write this down if any of you guys want to get into this. But yeah, Undercover Tourist, I bought my Icon Pass through that, which is like a ski pass that gives me access to a bunch of mountains. And I went and wiped it out with all my points from my Barclays Arrival Plus card because it was coded as travel. So I got it for free. It was sick. And all I had to do was hit that minimum spend with purchases I was already planning on making. Like I didn't believe that this was a thing until I kind of did it for the first time. And I'm like, why isn't everyone doing this? And it's because people are dumb and most people are really irresponsible with credit cards. So the credit card companies make a fortune, you know, baiting people with these offers. Like, you know, spend $4,000, get 60,000 points. But then these people spend $10,000 and take 5 years to pay off the card. And the credit card company makes out like a bandit. So don't do that. Don't follow the people that, you know, fund these credit card companies. You want to be taking advantage of them, not them taking advantage of you. But travel hacking is awesome. Like it's so cool. And I could talk about that all day. So I feel like we covered your question, Catalina. How do you travel hack? I mean, flights, I travel hack. Airbnb, I travel hack. Excursions, I travel hack. Anything I can, I travel hack. Like I've used and abused my points. Anyone else got any more questions?
We're kind of wrapping up our time, Cody. So,
okay.
You know, if we have one or two more questions, we'll probably do it. But I think this was awesome. Like you just dropped so many bombs and great pieces of advice from someone. I didn't realize you were so young, but
I was going to say, I hope I'm relatable. Like that was the awesome thing about when I went around with Grant. It's like, you know, some 6-year-old guy comes in a suit and tells you how to save money. But like, then I come in and actually have a real story that's relatable. It's a lot higher impact, I think. Like I wouldn't listen to that old guy that comes into my class. Yeah. But hopefully you guys get a lot of like kind of my journey and what I'm doing. And I am not that much older than you. So it's totally possible to kind of, you know, engineer. You might have to grind it out for a couple of years. I'm not saying that, you know, everything's going to be roses and butterflies and you're going to hit financial independence next year. But like, if you start thinking about it now, you know, get that first job, start just putting as much money as you can away, buying those assets that will pay you. Let's see. How much money did you start out with when you began your first successful business? I had like no money when I started that disc golf business. I had less than $1,000. It was just like hustling and grinding and getting prototypes and begging people for time in their shop. So yeah, I mean, it's possible with next to nothing. And $1,000 might sound like not next to nothing. I probably had like $800 or $900 saved up. It is easier to make money once you have more money, but it is absolutely possible, especially when you have energy when you're young. I mean, I remember I used to be able to stay up till 3 a.m. 5 nights in a row, no problem. Now I'm, you know, slowing down a little bit. I probably could still, you know, probably could still do it a couple times, but you just have so much energy in your late teens, early 20s. So you can totally bootstrap a business, Jabbar, if you're thinking about it with little to no money.
Cody, some of the other things you were talking about earlier, you know, the stuff that young people should know that they're just not taught in schools or wherever. You know, like the credit cards is a great example, side hustles, building your own business, investing in index funds, all that stuff. It's all things that I put in my book. And I don't know if you even remember, but because it's been so long ago. You filled out a survey for me for a case study for the book that I'm writing for Bigger Pockets.
I think Craig sent me over to you, right?
I think that's probably how it happened. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Craig emailed me. He's like, "Hey, my buddy Dan's like finishing up his book. Like,
Yeah.
you want to be an excerpt?" And I was like, "Absolutely."
Yeah. So thanks for doing that. And I was telling the group before you popped on that about an hour before the meeting, I actually finished the book. So it is done. I need to turn it into Bigger Pockets January 4th. So I got a little time to do some proofreading. But that's awesome. And when you're talking about networking, you know, how you went to FinCon and met Grant, and that, you know, took you in a direction you never thought you would go. Very similar story for me. I went to a meetup at Bigger Pockets here in Denver and met Craig Kurlop, who at the time had just started at Bigger Pockets. And that relationship has taken me places I never thought I would go, like writing a book. If I wouldn't have been at that meetup and met Craig, I would not have written a book. Not that he, you know, helped me, but the idea of writing a book came from him and Scott coming into my classroom on a normal basis, talking to my kids. And that's where the idea came from. So when you network and you meet people on meetup.com or Zoom calls or in person, you just never know where that one connection is going to take you. It can completely change the trajectory of your life in a very good way. You know, you might even meet like a future husband or wife too. You just never know. And COVID has stifled that some, but luckily we have things like Zoom where it can still happen. So, Cody, thanks so much for your time. It was awesome. I recorded this, and so I always put the recorded meetings in our Slack group for people who couldn't be here tonight to watch it, and we'll be sure and tell them that they need to, because it was fire. It was fire, right?
Wait, I want to propose a challenge though before we go, because this is like, I mean, I've said it a million times, but just once a day, just reach out to someone. Doesn't matter what platform. You guys can hit me up if you have a business idea. If you want to chat, like, please shoot me an email, and Dan, you can more than happy to send my email over to everyone here. Like, just get out of your comfort zone. And it's going to be so weird. Like, I remember messaging people on LinkedIn. I'm like, why would this person ever answer me? And most of them don't. But the ones that do, they will seriously change your life forever. Like, I mean, just meeting Grant, like all of my businesses that I have now, most of them are partnerships. Most of them are because I just reached out. Like the courses I started with my friend Julie, she was a bigger and more successful podcaster in the space than me. I hit her up. I said, hey, what's something we can do together? And a couple of months later, we started making courses. So please, like, this is my challenge. Please reach out, whether it's LinkedIn, email, Instagram, like just people you admire, people who are a couple of steps ahead of you, and just say hello, make a connection, add value, you know, tell them that you can help them with whatever. You're going to learn a lot. They're going to be more willing to help you because you're helping them. Yeah. So that's my challenge. That's why I wanted to, I want to give an actual piece of advice instead of people, just waiting years down the road to buy that property or whatever, like something that you can literally do. No excuse, today, tomorrow, whenever. Yeah. Okay. Do we have any more questions? Oh, well, thanks everybody. It was fun hanging out.
Great advice, Cody. And if you talk to Grant or you text him, whatever, he's scheduled to come on February 21st. So make sure you tell him it's really scary. And no, don't tell him it was fun, I hope, and that he'll have a good time with all these young people. I didn't realize you guys were so tight. I didn't realize you spent.
We text literally almost every day. Like he's like a 35-year-old dude that I met at a conference. Like, you know what I mean? It's crazy. And actually, he just hooked me up recently. His site got sold to the Motley Fool, and they wanted a lead content consultant. And he's like, "Hey, Cody will do it." And I'm like, "All right." So they're paying me a lot of money to work part-time. Look at that.
I talked to Grant.
Connection City.
Yeah, Grant was nice enough. We had a good hour-long Zoom call where I just picked his brain about a few different things about the book I'm writing. I just wanted his advice as, if you were me and you're about to launch a book with Bigger Pockets, what would you be doing? And he talked to me for a good hour, and he mentioned that the Motley Fool bought out his business. And I got the feeling but he's pretty set. And his book was amazingly successful.
I think he sold like 300,000 or 400,000 copies.
Yeah. In like 20 countries and 8 languages.
Yeah.
It
Yes,
might
Jabbar.
it might be the most successful fire book out there.
Yeah, I
By
think it is in
far.
terms of sales. Maybe Your Money, Your Life is up there, but that's a good
Yeah.
book too. Yeah. There's a lot of good ones out there. But yeah, you guys are gonna have a lot of fun with Grant. He's super cool and down to earth.
He's got the biggest beard you can imagine.
He does have a big beard.
All right,
All
Cody.
right, well, it's 8:30, so thanks for having me, Dan. Thank you, everybody. And please, I don't know if you use Slack or whatever, but share my email. Guys, seriously hit me up. Like if you're hustling this hard at 15 to 20 or however old you are, like I'm more than willing to help you and answer questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Cody. Take care.
Hit me up on it. See you later.
Thank you, Cody.
See you guys.
If you like this video and want to see more like it, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You should also go check out our website and Instagram, which are both linked below this video. Thanks again for watching. Now go and get your freak on.